Heads up. So hi everybody. Welcome to the Add-ons community meeting for May 23rd, 2018. Happy to have y'all here. Start today with recognizing a few friends of Add-ons. There were a couple of them this week. I wanted to recognize Andreas for being very nice when I kept pressuring him to update the Add-ons weekly reviews report. It ended up being a pretty complicated process that involved a couple of patches to AMO and some weird SQL stuff that I don't really understand the specifics of, but I know that it happened and it took a lot of time. So and it ended up being a lot more work than Andreas anticipated. So I just want to thank him for making the time to do that and for not biting my head off.
Thank you.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty great. So yes, lots of claps to Andreas for being awesome. Let's all give a round of applause for Xander, who's here on the call today, for handling that 1R Firefox thread like a boss. Good job, Xander. You and Sylvan do an excellent job of monitoring Reddit, a place that I'm afraid to go, and representing Mozilla very well. So I just want to say that we really appreciate it, and y'all are really awesome. Oh, yay. And I also wanted to give a call out to Shivam, who's not here right now, but Shivam is one of our contributors based in India. And Shivam has been contributing a lot of code to AMO recently and building extensions. And Shivam recently gave me a heads up because he wanted to use the add-on compatibility reporter to test some extensions on AMO. And he was like, oh, this is kind of weird. It doesn't look like it works. And I was like, oh yeah, that's because it's retired. So he gave us a head up to help us keep our contribution listings updated. So big thanks to Shivam for staying on top of that and reaching out with those notes. Is there anybody else that anybody wants to recognize as being a good friend of add-ons this week? Cool. I think we should all get stickers that say friend of add-ons. That's my next goal. Not really cool. Okay, cool. So I just had a couple of things for the discussion and update section of the meeting. Number one, a couple weeks ago, we talked about the extensions and themes planning, so what our goals are for 2018, and then we had Mike come in and talk about the web extensions roadmap, so the breakdown of that. So I know it was a pretty big overview. I wanted to provide a link to the Trello board where all of this information is being tracked. So the Trello board is public. Some of the links inside each individual Trello card may not be public. So I just want to give everybody a heads up, but if you're interested in kind of following along where things are or checking in on the cards to see like what's going on with them, sometimes people update them with screenshots and like, you know, like where things currently are in the process. Feel free to go take a look. And if you have any questions, please feel free to let us know. We do want to be open and transparent about our goals for 2018 and not take anybody by surprise. So we're still working on those goals for 2018. I think probably at our all hands, we're going to be working towards some of those. I think we have some updates about one of the goals for add-on recommenders. I think that's going, I think an early version of that is going live this week. Jorge, if you're not totally frozen, because you're a little frozen here, but you want to chime in about that?
Sure. So yes, this week's push should include the TAR feature. TAR is telemetry assisted add-on recommender. Yeah. And it basically consists of taking telemetry data that tells us the correlations between certain add-ons, like if you have certain add-ons, you're more likely to have certain other add-ons, and use that as a seed for recommendations So the recommendations are going to appear in add-on listing pages. So when you go to a particular listing page, you're going to see recommendations that are based on the add-on that you're looking at. So if you're looking at a particular add-on, it'll recommend you add-ons that are correlated to that one, add-ons that are often installed together with that based on a very large pool of users. So that basically allows us to recommend things that are more intelligently, rather than just like showing you the top add-ons or showing you stuff that's hand curated, which is also valuable. But yeah, it's a different way to recommend stuff that will be useful to you. And this is headed by our data team, who are very scientific about the whole thing. So they are measuring very carefully how this is performing, and they know exactly like how well it performs over just random recommendations. And so it's very exciting because it's very data driven, and we know that it's going to be very, very useful.
And I have a question. Is this going to like everybody on so everybody on AMO is going to be in this, or is there like a group that's not going to be seeing this because of science?
Right. So there's a group that's going to see the TAR recommendations. There's a group that's going to see just a set of popular add-ons. I believe that there are also people who are not going to get any recommendations. I could be wrong about that. No, I do think that there's still a chunk of people that are not going to see recommendations. But the idea is to start off with those groups and measure how they're performing before it can be expanded.
Got it. Okay, cool. Does anyone have any questions about TAR or this experiment? Okay, very cool. If we see any weird recommendations, is there something we should do? Like, I don't know, like if I see, well, laser cat isn't a weird recommendation, but if I see something that is like not appropriate for me, or if I'm like, I don't really like this, is there anything I should do, or should I just like move on?
Yeah, you could file an issue, or you could just poke us. I think that, I mean, I guess it depends on what you mean by weird. Because like technically these are, I mean, like these are all add-ons that are listed on AMO, so technically we shouldn't have bad stuff. Okay. But yeah, if something turns out to be like spam or sketchy, I think it'd be good to file a bug report.
And file that to add-on server?
Add-ons, I think.
To just add-ons, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, I also can't imagine getting a recommendation, but you never know. I'm personally hoping that more people get LaserCat recommended to them. It's really satisfying. Okay, awesome. So that's one of the big bets that's advancing this week, which is pretty cool. We also had Firefox 61 go into beta, I think last week. I think it went into beta last week. Time is, kind of weird. So we have a whole bunch of new web extensions APIs landing in 61. So those are available now on Dev Edition and beta. Mike, do you want to say a couple words about like some highlights that developers can look for?
Yeah, just a few things to mention. The first would be that tab hiding that is available to extensions, the ability to hide and show tabs on demand, is now enabled by default. Well, actually, that's in not 61. That's 61. So it previously landed in 59, and we didn't have a UI for it. So the UI finally landed, and we flipped the pref to true, so that extensions who want to use the tab hiding API can now do so without flipping a pref. And in fact, that pref will probably go away in the next release, so that you won't even be able to turn off tab hiding anymore. So I know some extension developers were already using it with behind the pref, and some extension developers are just starting to take advantage of it. I think the ability to hide and show tab is going to enable a lot more session management extensions and tab management extensions, tab hiding, that sort of thing, doing things in the background of tabs. So I'm excited to see what developers can do with tab hiding. Another one maybe to mention is if anybody is writing a proxy extension, we did change the proxy interface in 61. In 59, we actually introduced the proxy API under the browser settings namespace. It was broken when we released it. We did some initial testing, but we didn't catch some fairly, to be frank, obvious corner cases. And so it really needed to be fixed. But in the process of fixing it, we sort of reevaluated where we wanted the proxy API to show up. And instead of in the browser settings namespace, we decided to move it to the actual proxy namespace, which obviously is a lot more intuitive and makes a lot more sense for developers looking to write a proxy extension. You might look in the proxy namespace. So proxy API did move from the browser namespace to the proxy namespace, and we did fix it, so it does work now, and we tested it hopefully much more thoroughly this time. And we also uplifted that change to 60. So if you are using Firefox 60, which is out in release at this point, all the proxy and proxy APIs are under the proxy namespace. So 59 is the only version that had proxy in the browser settings namespace, and it's broken anyway. So it doesn't really matter. Starting with 60 and certainly in 61, you'll want to look for the proxy API in the proxy namespace. Those are probably the two most important things to highlight for what's coming out in 61.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm super excited about the session managers. I know we did see a number of session manager submissions to the extensions challenge, which was pretty great. So, and I know pretty much everyone who won the extensions challenge was all looking at making improvements within the next couple of weeks. So now that there's like a couple of expanded APIs, I think they're going to be able to do that. So
I think so too.
Yeah. So really cool to see the developers engaged and to see that work continue. All right.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah, web extensions continuing. So any questions about Firefox 61 and extensions? Other than I have too many of them. Okay, cool. So I wanted to give everybody a heads up that we're going to be releasing a developer survey soon for extension. So this is focused primarily on extension developers. We do kind of want to put some feelers out to the web developer community to gauge interest and see if any of them had ever attempted building an extension, since we're thinking that folks who have lived in the web developer space are they have the skills needed to write a browser extension. So they're kind of the next group that we want to bring into the fold and introduce the magic to. But this one in particular is just going out to known extension developers. So next Wednesday, we'll be releasing a new issue of our extension developer newsletter. So the link to the survey will be there. We'll also be releasing the link on the forum and on Twitter. So if folks want to go ahead and take that would be awesome. It would be really helpful to help us prioritize what tools and documentation we can create to make the development process better. That would be really awesome. And I don't know if Reddit is a good place to introduce but you know, if you see a pop up on Reddit and you see any flames, please let us know. We'll keep an eye on the situation. So that'll be out starting next Wednesday.
We really do want to get a good response to this survey. It's really going to help us set the direction for the web extensions roadmap, help us identify what documentation, templates, other developer tools, testing might be important. We know they're all important, but deciding how to prioritize them and what to work on first is really one of my primary goals for this survey. So I would encourage everybody who's watching the video at this point to take the survey, but also tweet it out, put it on Facebook, send it to your friends. If you have any community members that aren't here but you know of that would be interested, I would definitely encourage you to send it to them as well. Getting a good response to the survey is really going to help us in the future.
Totally. So the next thing I just wanted to mention, I'm not sure if other folks are aware of this, but our test pilot team has been working on a project called Firefox Color. So Firefox Color is kind of like a DIY, like build your own dynamic theme. So there's like a really early version of this that's on GitHub that folks can play with. It's kind of fun to play with. I accidentally changed my themes pretty hardcore. And it's going to be released in test pilot, I think, in a couple of weeks. I think they're just gearing up to release it in test pilot. So you'll get the fancier version available through the test pilot add-ons pretty soon. Firefox Color is pretty cool. It looks like we're going to be working with the test pilot folks to expand a little bit of Firefox Color's capabilities. So things that are on the roadmap for Firefox Color that aren't already there are things like being able to have some sort of like image like that the user supplies for the background, and then you can customize the theme around that. So we're looking at that as kind of like a good way to get community members interested in designing their own themes for their own browser. That kind of ties in with some conversations we've been having recently about Personas Plus. So Personas Plus, it looks like what we're going to be doing is potentially migrating some of the features of Personas Plus into the browser itself, and then possibly retire. And then, not possibly. I think we're looking to sunset Personas Plus at some point, especially if we can get some of the features in the browser. So I'm actually not sure where that currently stands. Maybe if other folks have been in conversations about Personas Plus, they could chime in here with kind of what's going on with that.
So if folks aren't aware, John Gruen's the primary driver behind Firefox Color. And like Caitlin said, that's the test pilot experiment to let users create themes on the fly in the browser. As far as Personas Plus goes, what we're looking to do is migrate a lot of the features that made Personas Plus very attractive for people into the default browser. And some of those features in Personas Plus might actually migrate to the Firefox Color test pilot experiment. And John Gruen has an entire roadmap planned out for that. And if you look at, for people not familiar with test pilot actually kind of puts features out there that aren't quite browser ready yet and just sees reaction to it. So screenshots that first appeared in Quantum 57 started out as a test pilot experiment and now is part of the default product. So it's pretty easy to imagine John has a roadmap that would take a lot of the Persona Plus functionality, integrate it into the Firefox Color test pilot experiment, and then over the next several releases, based on market reaction and user feedback, we would migrate Firefox Color into a standard part of the Firefox browser. So I think we have a pretty good roadmap for how we can get the functionality of Personas Plus into the default browser. But you'll probably see it happen slowly over time as Firefox Color. Typical usage of a test pilot experiment is to release it, get some feedback, iterate on it, release it again, get more feedback, and then eventually it becomes a standard part of the product. So I think over the next several releases, you'll see Personas Plus and Firefox Color and just the theming capabilities of the browser really start to take on a much more mature and available experience for users. I don't know John's roadmap, so I'm trying not to say any dates or anything because I don't want to speak for John, but I know it's on his roadmap, and I know he's been talking to me, he's been talking to David Durst on the engineering side, he's been talking to Philip Walmsley on the UX side, so there's a lot of discussion and a lot of activity around it, so things are definitely going to be happening.
Yeah, so some really cool stuff coming down the pike with themes. Andreas has been our engineer on Personas Plus in addition to everything else he does. So again, like, thank you, Andreas, for keeping Personas Plus alive and for asking the question about when we migrate to static themes, will Personas Plus continue working? That was kind of where this conversation started, and we learned that the answer was no. We learned that the answer was the migration to static themes is going to lightly break Personas Plus. Oh, Andres, are you talking?
No, I was going to say, depending on the timeline and when features are going to land in Firefox, I mean, yes, the migration to prosthetic themes will break Personas Plus, but that doesn't mean we can't update Personas Plus to make it work with them.
Okay. Cool. Okay. So yeah, depending on the timeline, but but like we would have to do a lot of work to get it to work with AMO, right? That was the kicker.
From my side of view, I haven't looked into the details, but I don't expect it to be a lot of work.
Okay.
It's just fetching the attributes of the themes in a new way, and then yeah, everything else will be the same.
Okay. Okay, cool. So yeah, maybe patching until things are in the browser. Awesome. So yeah, any questions about Firefox Color or Personas Plus or themes? Okay, cool. So I wanted to take a quick moment to acknowledge the fact that last week an updated version of the add-on reviews report launched. Big thanks to Andreas. It looks like it was well received, but I just wanted to get some feedback, especially from our reviewers who are here in the room with us. So Sylvan and Xander, like, did you have any feedback that you wanted to share about the updated report, or like how did it, what were your impressions of it?
Yeah, for me it seems fine. It seems great actually. I know that Erosman found out a little bug yesterday that Andreas took care of it, but besides that, seems awesome. Yep.
Okay, awesome. Okay, and Xander says it looks great so far. Okay, great. Yeah, I'm fond of it. It's kind of nice to have that cleaned up. Some of those cleaned up numbers and like some more information about risk. So again, thank you, Andreas, for fighting many dragons to get that into production. And thanks for addressing that bug that was found the other day. That was really helpful. So my next question is actually for Andreas, and that is it going to be that painful to recreate this for content reviewers? Or will the process be a little bit easier for putting a similar report for content reviewers into production?
I think first we would want to start with creating a document like we did for add-on reviewers to check or to define what we'd like to display in the weekly report. Okay. And then going from there, we can evaluate what we can reuse from what we have now. But until I know what the content reviewer report should look like, it's very hard to say how much work that's going to be.
Okay, cool. Because that's something that I'd like to do just for my benefit as somebody who looks at the reports every week, and it's a good indicator of like who's active, who's engaged, like where are the gaps? Is there something we can do to help with engagement? And hopefully also helpful for the reviewers themselves. To kind of take a look and say like, oh, hey, this is really awesome. Like I was really active this week and it shows, and I can share this with my peers. So I can definitely take a first stab at what that template looks like, and then we can maybe get that ball rolling. That would be pretty cool. Speaking of content review, there is a persistent bug. An issue has been filed with content review where occasionally you can't review an extension that's in the content review queue because it has been flagged for admin code review, and that admin flag doesn't show in the content review. We know about it. We don't have anyone to work on it, so Andreas signed up for it. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. We need to get you like a Superman cape or something. So unfortunately, because of the way that just because we have some limited resources, it might take a little bit to fix. So it might take a little bit of time to fix. So we know about it, and we're sorry that it's there, but it may just be a little while before we're able to implement a fix on it. Yeah. Okay. So are there any questions or anything else that anyone wants to share this week? Okay, is everyone really excited? I think we're all Northern Hemisphere folks here. Are we all really excited about warm weather? Yeah, okay.
Yes.
Yeah, same here. And hopefully our Southern Hemisphere folks are excited about cooler temperatures. And I don't know if pumpkin spice lattes are a thing in the Southern Hemisphere, but if they are, I I hope they're coming soon. Okay, awesome. Well, thanks everybody for joining us, and we'll see you all in 2 weeks. So have a great Wednesday, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.